football's hard. It's not easy. That's why you don't have, that's why technically it's a dying sport in a lot of areas, because it's not easy to play football. It's easier to go do other things. But I think we can find a space to where, how do we coexist in both those worlds, to where this is a really hard game. It's going to teach you a lot of life lessons and make you tougher and all that stuff, which is important, because I tell our kids all the time, like, one day, man, wife's going to be sick, baby's going to be crying, you're going to not want to go to work, but somebody's got to go up and get up and go make money. Like, excuse my language, but shit's going to get hard, Yep. So you got to be able to fight through that stuff. And the game of football teaches you that. I personally think this is one of the last sports out there, or one of the last things out there, where kids are learning those tough, valuable life lessons, because this game is not easy.
Welcome to the Quarterback Code Podcast, where we interview offensive coordinators, QB coaches, quarterbacks, and anyone who could add value as we decode the most difficult position in all of sports. Today, we're diving deep into the art of quarterback development with Josh Lindke, the 2024 All-Blade Football Coach of the Year and head coach of St. Francis de Sales, a program he transformed from 1-9 to 8-4 in just one season. At only 31 years old, Coach Lindke has already established himself as a leader in adaptable offensive strategy, able to blend multiple spread concepts and philosophies to fit his team's strengths each year. We'll break down quarterback development, the different RPO concepts he runs, and simplifying pre-snap reads. Plus, how he walks quarterbacks through game day scripts to sharpen decision-making. Beyond football, Coach Lindke shares how the game has helped him through his life's challenges and how therapy has deepened his connection with his players. He's found a long-term home with St. Francis and is focused on making a lasting impact on his team and the community. So let's dive in and learn from one of the game's rising coaches. Hello, welcome back to another episode of the Quarterback Code, where we dive into the nuance of quarterback play and help you coaches out there really guide these quarterbacks along their journey, whether it's youth, middle school, or high school. Today we have a special guest, Josh Lindke, head football coach at St. Francis de Sales in Ohio. You can find him on CoachTube talking quarterback drills and improving his RPO game. He's presented at the Glacier Clinics. He's presented on Coaches Insiders as a featured Coach of the Year presenter. He was the 2024 All-Blade Football Coach of the Year, and we're lucky to have him on. How's it going, Josh? Want to welcome you in and let you introduce yourself here.
Yeah, man, appreciate that introduction. Thanks for having me on, and just excited to talk some football, talk some quarterback play with you, and hopefully somebody listening around here can get something out of it.
For sure. And I do want to highlight before we get into your journey and how you got here, but that team you took over, your Coach of the Year this year, from what I found, it looked like they were 1-9 the year before you took over, and it's been a pretty quick turnaround for you guys and your staff.
Yeah, I got hired actually a little over a year ago this time, back in December of 2000, what would have been 23. I was a head coach at Otsego High School for 2 years, which is a smaller school about 30 minutes northeast of here, a little bit. So, I was out there and it was my first job. I was coming from Toledo Central Catholic, who's actually one of our big rivals here at St. Francis. I was coming from there as an assistant coach, coaching the quarterbacks there with Coach Dempsey, and knew I wanted to be a head coach, so was lucky enough to get the Otsego job. And it's been unique because I've had a kind of an interesting dynamic where we took over for a guy that did a lot of good things and had the program rolling at Otsego. Was actually coming off 2 years in a row where they were like 23-1 or 2 with some regional final appearances, a Final Four appearance. So we've taken over a program that's like been really, really good. And then I've got some pretty tight relationships with the administration here at St. Francis, and I always kept in touch with them because I actually worked here prior, back in 2017 and 18 as the OC. And so when this job came open, it had been open for a multitude of years every year. They actually had 5 head coaches in 4 years before I took over as the 6th head coach in 5 years here. And every time it just didn't make sense to take the job. But then finally, John Hall, the principal here, him and I are good buddies. He got a hold of me last year and was like, "Hey, you finally ready to maybe do this thing and talk seriously?" And I think at that point in time, it made sense for me after being at Otsego for 2 years. And so yeah, we took over. The program was 7-33 in the previous 4 years combined. We knew what we were kind of getting ourselves into. Our first workout about a year ago this time, we had 9 kids show up. And when we're a large Division II school in the state of Ohio. And this program used to, when Coach Cromwell, the long-time legendary head coach here, he was here in the 80s, the 90s, early 2000s. This was really the cream of the crop. St. Francis was when it came to high school football in Toledo and even the state of Ohio. And so the program had definitely fallen on hard times. A lot of proud alumni base here. So we took over. We knew we had our hands full, and our kids did a nice job just diving in and going to work and didn't really complain about what was taking place previously. I think they were, once they saw that we were going to pour into them as much as we wanted them to pour back into us as a staff, they really did a good job. And then once you're in it, we started the season 0-1 against a tough Perrysburg team, and then we rattled off 5 in a row and actually beat Toledo St. John's, who is our the other all boys school here in the city of Toledo, which is kind of our direct rival. We've got 2 rivals with them and Central Catholic. Got 5 in a row, beat St. John's, ended up 7-3, won a first round playoff game at Avon Lake, got to the second round and got beat by a really good Medina Highland team final. But our kids did a phenomenal job. I mean, we had 6 kids, get all league, all district honors, and a couple kids get all state honors. So we've been really fortunate, to just have this turnaround happen very quickly, but there's a lot of hard work that went into it and people buying in. And I think, as a head coach, it's not as easy as just having it happen, right? You got to have a lot of pieces kind of fall into place. And that includes the administration being on board, the kids being on board, you're hiring a good staff, getting lucky along the way too. I mean, certainly having good players, and there's always been good players here. Having good players helps and putting them in the right position to succeed, and having a little bit of luck along the way will certainly play in your favor. So just started off-season workouts on Monday, and we're ready to get back at it and continue to build on this, our good start from last year.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, in 1 year to go from 1 win to a playoff run, you can't expect much more than that. I mean, that's a pretty magical turnaround. And like you said, it's a lot goes into that. The stars kind of have to align, but it does start with leadership. So, pat yourself on your back a little bit. I know you're already thinking about next year and probably the year after that, but it's pretty cool. That's a pretty cool story, and it's great to hear.
Absolutely.
It takes stages, just like, when your Cavs lost to my Warriors, in the championship, you got to kind of feel it before you beat them.
No doubt. You got to kind of go through some hard times before, the good times roll around. So that's kind of in the process we're in. That we went, this turnaround happened so quickly. We're now the thing that we're trying to preach to our kids now. And I know it's early, but people are going to have some expectations for us now. And that's probably the first time in a long time that, this football program is going to have legit expectations when the fall rolls around. So how do we handle that now, going from basically, trying to hunt to be in the hunted and in such a short period of time, so, and we got to understand we can't forget what got us there either. Again, it happened quick, but, and that's, I guess my job as the guy up top to make sure that our kids stay focused and try to continue to build upon what we've started.
All right, cool. Before we dive into the story, one more question, just so we can lay the table. Now, obviously, a lot of your presentation is around quarterback play, which is why I wanted to talk to you so bad and why our audience is going to love this conversation. But do you have like a offensive philosophy as far as the types of offense you run? I mean, is it like a true RPO based offense, or air raid?
Yeah.
I
think you could just, that question is so commonly asked that it's, people are always like, well, we run the spread. And I think spread has turned into a multitude of different things. The biggest thing that I've tried to be a proponent of is build a quarterback friendly offense. And then within that quarterback friendly offense, try to highlight our best players. If our best players is our tailback, for instance, our tailback was probably our best player this year, then we're going to run the ball, right? We're always going to want to run the ball, but we're going to find unique ways to spread people out and run the football. If our best player is our H, which is one of our slots, and that's happened in years past before too. There's been years where our H is our best player. Then there's been years that our H is probably our 4th or 5th best receiver. And so our Y hybrid tight end could be the guy, a couple years when we were at Central Catholic, with using some similar schemes, like our Y was really good at Otsego. Our Y was really good at Central, at Central, we've had years where it's the tailback heavy, right? Over here at St. Francis, we were tailback heavy last year, with our slot H being probably that second best guy. So I think that the best thing that we try to do is just try to find user-friendly RPOs and user-friendly pass concepts for our quarterback. And then we're always going to run the football with some sort of zone scheme, some sort of gap scheme, and really just try to dive into what our kids are really good at. We've been a tempo system before. Believe it or not, this year, though, we huddled a lot. And I actually ran the quarterback from the sideline to myself, giving the play every time. And that was something we haven't done in years, but it fit our kids. Our defense our defensive coordinator was new and he was coming along this year. To me, it was like, let's slow the game down a little bit, where like, I'm 31 years old right now. I think when I started calling plays when I was 23, I would have been like, no, tempo. Like, let's play fast. And that's going to alleviate all the issues. Well, when you're a head coach, you see the game a little bit differently because all aspects have to matter. So we tried to help out our defense a little bit as they got better throughout the year. And I think slowing the game down and kind of letting our kids hear a play call, dissect it, and then go execute worked for us really well. And it won us a lot of ball games. And so, would I like to huddle all the time? No, but I think that we're going to be able to have a good mix now going forward of being able to play fast with some tempo, but also being able to slow it down. We're going to always take our shots downfield. But the unique thing is that we've kind of built a system to where we can be really adaptive to what our kids are really good at. And it's really easy for them to pick up on. We don't kind of just give it up for free and let, everybody know about it, in the sense that, like, we're telling a bunch of people how we call formations and things like that. But it's a unique system in the sense that we've built it in a way that kids can easily pick up on it, and we can play fast, we can slow it down, and we can make it easy for them to execute at a high level.
Well, I love that, Coach. And, this audience is primarily come to the table as younger, and I mean that in terms of their coaching experience, younger offensive play callers and some head coaches. And those key points, we talk a lot about air raid on my channel, but what you're talking about is really where my mind is moving to. And what I want this audience to see is, like, regardless if it's air raid or RPOs, whatever you call it, whatever you do, it's all about, making it easy for, number one, your quarterback to be able to understand, because they're going to be the person leading them on the field, no matter how much time you spend with them. And then making it something that your offense, whatever it turns into, something that they can all kind of easily pick up on and just go fast with, right? Overcomplicating, especially at these lower levels, coaches, it's not necessary. And if anything, it's actually going to slow you down. So I love that, a successful high school coach at the highest level in high school, preaching that to all levels. And the younger you get, the more simple you need to be. So, there's nothing wrong with having a small playbook and calling the same plays. If they're not stopping it, just go. And
I think I think as play callers, we're all guilty sometimes of trying to get too creative, right? And I think that, it's easy to just look back at what got you there and what your kids are really good at in stressful times, and having those, 5 to 7 plays where, you need a 3rd and 8, and your kids can execute this play at a high level. It might not, in theory, be a great 3rd and 8 play, but it's a great 3rd and 8 play because your kids execute it 9.5 out of 10 times, Right,
exactly. Love that. All right, cool. So now let's get into the fun part here. Let's take it back, Coach. I love talking to coaches about X's and O's, but really, this is all about relationships and your journey and how you got where you are. And a lot of coaches want to understand how people climb that ladder. And for you to be 31 and Coach of the Year in Toledo, Ohio. By the way, I used to rock. I'm a San Francisco kid. A Toledo Mud hat back.
Yeah, the Hens, man, they're a hot commodity here. The Hens are they liven up downtown Toledo quite a bit during the summertime. So the Hens games are awesome.
But we want to talk about the journey. So tell me a little bit about. Let's talk a little bit about your early years. Did you grow up with brothers or sisters? What was that like?
Yeah. So I was born in Toledo, Ohio, ironically. So born here and then moved around quite a bit. My dad at the time worked for Liberty Mutual, which is an insurance company. So we moved around quite a bit. I actually, before I was like the age of 2, was born in Toledo, lived in Cleveland, lived in Columbus, lived in Sandusky, in a couple different apartments with my mom and my dad. And then we ended up moving to Indiana, Noblesville, Indiana. So we lived there for a few years. My brother was born, my middle brother, Jake. And then we ended up moving to Louisiana, Mandeville, Louisiana. So we were there for a few years. And then my next brother, the youngest brother, Jordan, he was born there. And then we moved to Chicago, Illinois. And then we were in Chicago, Illinois for a couple years. And then my parents ended up getting a divorce and we moved back to Toledo. So my dad's family was here. My mom's family was here. So they kind of just thought they were going to separate, but it made sense for everybody to kind of move back this way to have family around. So we ended up moving back to Toledo. And that actually all took place before I was 12 years old. So we were back. Yeah, we were back in Toledo when I was going on to my my birthday at 12. So pretty crazy journey from the younger years. So I actually ended up starting school. I went to Anthony Wayne High School, which is a bigger school around this area. Same size as St. Francis here, good public school. So we were out there. I started in 5th grade and I started actually playing football back in Chicago. And actually, ironically, when I was younger playing tackle football, I absolutely hated it. Like my parents had to force me to go to games. I was the quarterback, and funny story, like our center wore a cup, and with my hands having to take the snap, I used to get a bruise. So I was like, I do not want to do this. Don't want to do this. And my mom did a good job of kind of forcing me into it. My dad did a good job of kind of forcing me into it and continue to play. Cause obviously I fell in love with the game and I do it for a living now, but, and then got to Anthony Wayne, played in 5th and 6th grade. They had tackle football there. And my mom ended up getting remarried to our late stepdad, who passed a couple years back, actually. And actually, I would say that my coaching journey kind of started because of watching him. He actually coached me back when I was younger, 5th and 6th grade, and then actually coached against me as well, because he was coaching for the local youth team in Anthony Wayne. So kind of a funny story there. So we grew up, played junior high, played quarterback my entire life. Got to high school, played freshman football, was a quarterback there, got some time as a sophomore as a quarterback. We had a kid that was kind of playing. He was an athlete. We were a wing tee offense in high school. I played for Craig Smith and Anthony Wayne. We were a wing tee offense. So I knew nothing about spread football growing up. I got like I said, flirted with some time my sophomore year, and then was the full-time starter my junior and senior year. We ended up my junior year, we were 7-3, missed the playoffs just barely. And then, and that was back when the region only had 8 teams going to do it instead of 16 now here in Ohio. So it was much more difficult to get in back then. Played my senior year as well, was started as the quarterback again for the second year. Then we made the playoffs at 8-2 and ended up playing Toledo Whitmer in the first round, who had Nigel Hayes and Chris Wormley and Jody Webb, who's actually now on our staff at St. Francis. So that team was absolutely loaded. They had some studs, and we ended up playing them the first round, lost 20-0. We were very undersized and overmatched in that game, but battled hard. Then I played baseball as well. So then I actually got a scholarship to play baseball at Rochester College. So I was going to school at Rochester after I graduated from Anthony Wayne, and just blew my arm out. So it was NAIA baseball. It was a small school. I was up there with a buddy that from high school, we were roommates. And, but my now, wife is, we were dating at the time. And so I was like driving home every weekend to see her, and she ended up going to Bowling Green. So long story short, I ended up transferring out of there after my freshman year, just coming back and going to school. And I actually had no major decided on what I wanted to do. Like because during my freshman year at Rochester, I was taking all kind of just the basic freshman classes and generalized studies. Like I think my major at the time was generalized studies, because I had no idea what I wanted to do. Well, got a call from our baseball coach, Anthony Wayne, Mark Nell, and he asked me if I wanted to coach freshman baseball. And I was like, sure, yeah, I'll coach freshman baseball. Well, then, so that was like in conjunction in the summertime with then Craig Smith, also our head football coach, needing a guy on staff to coach football, and reached out to me and wanted to know if I wanted to coach receivers. Now, coaching receivers in a wing tee offense is not very glamorous. So, but I was a 19-year-old kid. So I was like, yeah, I'll do that. So, which was awesome. But it was weird and unique, because I was coaching some guys that I had just played with a couple years prior. Then freshman baseball was really, that was like my first head coaching experience, was freshman baseball. And I enjoyed it a lot. It was awesome to kind of, build your team and make those decisions on your own, even though I was like 19, 20 years old. So I ended up coaching there for 2 years, coach varsity receivers, called JV offense, coach freshman baseball, ended up moving up and coaching varsity baseball my second or third year there. And then, all during this time I was a student at BGSU. So I eventually kind of wanted to grow my development in the game of football, and knew that was kind of the path that I wanted to take. Like I really enjoyed this coaching stuff. So I declared an education major at BG. So I became an education major. I got into PE and health, because I'm like, I want to do this stuff for a living. And really in Ohio, the only way to kind of do it for a living at a high level is to have that education degree. As I was going through school, I decided to, on a whim, reach out to the football department at BG with the operations director and write a letter and just say, hey, I'd be interested in helping out in any way that I can. So I got hired on as a student assistant. I actually started in the equipment room. So like my first couple months there, I was like working in the equipment room, but I was in the facility, and being in the facility, I was able to do a number of different things. And that was the year Coach Babers was on staff. He was the head coach there, and we won the MAC title in 2015. So I was kind of like half equipment room, half student assistant. And then that was kind of like my first experience with spread football, right? Well, then Coach Jinks we won the MAC title. Coach Babers got the Syracuse job. We had a great year, beat a couple Big Ten teams that year. So that was a really cool experience for me to be a part of. I was at the time, I was 20 years old, 19, 20, 21 years old, right around that time. So then Coach Jinks got the job, and I kind of got a little bit more responsibility. So I was actually working directly like with our young receivers and quarterbacks at BG, kind of our red shirt guys. So that was a great experience. I was able to watch film with them, break stuff down, help get practice scripts ready to go, help with practice, all that good stuff, be involved in some of the bigger meetings per se. So you really felt a part of it, because you're almost at that level. Like we had GAs, but we had 4 student assistants and 2 GAs. So we were kind of the guys that behind the scenes per se, as the ancillary pieces to the coaching staff. So that was a really cool experience. And I made a lot of buddies. Shane Gallant, who's he's a special teams assistant at Vanderbilt right now. He was in that staff with me working together. So there's another guy who's, an OC in the state of Ohio here. There's another guy who's coaching at North Texas that was a student assistant. So we've all kind of broken off and gone our own ways. And it was just cool to look back at all of us at 19, 20, 21 years old, and we were all kind of just not getting paid, spending 1 million hours at the facility, doing a bunch of grunt work for coaches, and like grunt work to the point of going and letting people's dogs out, picking guys up from the airport, all that fun stuff. So, and now we've all kind of gotten our big jobs here. So it's cool to it was cool to see us develop. But I was there for 2 years, met Seth Dagey, who's now actually the offensive coordinator at Arizona. So got really tight with him. Really learned X's and O's for him, because I would literally just after practice, like the more you were at the facility and spent time with the guys, the more they would give up and hang out and give you little nuggets here and there. And just that's how I learned how to watch football and learn how to break down football and learn what spread football was. So that was an awesome experience. Kevin Kilmer was the OC there, Andy Padron, who those 2 guys are working down in Texas now. Great experience for me, right? So actually at the time then, I was getting ready to graduate here within the year, and Dan Chipka, who became the head coach at St. Francis, he's an Anthony Wayne alum. So myself and his younger brother played baseball together. And so he reached out and was like, hey, Josh, I'm looking for an offensive coordinator. I know you're in the college route. You're kind of doing that thing. I was maybe going to try to get a GA job. Didn't really know what I was going to do. He's like, why don't you come be my OC at St. Francis? And that was a big job at the time for 22-year-old, 23-year-old, right? So I was like, yeah, let's go do that. So I had no idea what I was doing, right? Like, because, I was learning spread football, but I had never called a play a day in my life in terms of spread football. I had never, that diagrammed anything. So it was really, it was awesome that Dan gave me that experience. And we had some good coaches on staff that, knew the run game really well. And I'll tell you to this day, like at the time I had zero idea what I was doing. It was kind of fly by the seat of my pants, but I was learning, I was working my butt off, and living at home with my parents still, my mom, my stepdad. And then, so things were going well. And then, so I was here for 2 years. And when we took over the program, when Dan took it over, it was kind of in a similar state that when I just took over a year ago, where, well, not as many head coaches in the turnover, but just bad seasons, 1-9, 2-8. So not good. So 0-10, they were coming off of when we took over. So we went 2-8 our first year. Went 4-6 the second year, and then Greg Dempsey at Central Catholic called me, and Central Catholic is kind of the top dog in this area. They've won 5 state titles. Greg is a very well respected. He's probably one of the best coaches in the state of Ohio history. So he called me, and it's like, Central Catholic's the end all be all. So I had to go take that job. He asked me to come coach quarterback. So I got into coaching quarterbacks with him, was kind of the pass game coordinator, if you want to say. So developed our pass game a little bit. That was one area where they kind of struggled in. Was there for 3 years, went on a 3-year run, went to a Final Four. The second year I was there was a COVID year. So that was a little bit of a unique year. And then our third year there, we went to a regional final. So now I was like getting around, I kind of learned how to call plays on my own a little bit to a certain extent. Now I was learning how to become a head coach with how Greg ran his program. And I knew that I wanted to become a head coach. So, in theory, I had, kind of 5 legit good years of coaching experience, because those years that I was at Anthony Wayne, I was so young, 19, 20 years old, that, again, I didn't really know what I was doing, but I was around good people and was working my butt off and just kind of doing what I was told. So I started applying for head coaching jobs after those 3 years at Central, and got a couple interviews, got a couple job offers right off the bat. But again, the thing that I'll tell people about becoming a head coach is that like you better make sure that it's at the right spot and the administration's all in and it makes sense. And so ended up at Otsego, taking over for a guy in Matt Jerwall who did a really, really good job. So I've got that experience of like, okay, I'm a young head coach. I'm 28 years old. And now I'm taking over for a guy that was a legend there. Everybody loved, small community. I was like, I got there and I was like, what did I get myself into? Because when you go to a small community, it's different. People act different. It's just different. Like those small communities, man, they like their little bubbles and sometimes outsiders don't really fit well. Right. So, but we did a good job. We went 6-4. So kind of fell off, but with the talent that we had, we did the best we could. And then we went 4-6. And then, the St. Francis job, we talked off air a little bit, but the St. Francis job had kind of been a mess for a number of years. Was fortunate enough to keep a good relationship with John Hall, who's the principal here, and Father Rose, and, got to know Jamie Kashmerick, the basketball coach, and our AD. And I think, everybody here at St. Francis kind of looked in the mirror and was like, what do we got to do to get this thing turned around? Got it turned around. And that's where we're sitting here now. So, most of my experience has been on the offensive side with receivers and quarterbacks. And now I've been fortunate enough to be a head coach for my third year, going to my fourth. And we've had some success. And, I just enjoy being around people every day and developing kids and developing people. And this head coaching chair is a much different beast and animal than just calling plays and coaching quarterbacks and coaching receivers. So, but it's a lot of fun and they've set me up really well here. And this is a place where I want to be for a number of years going forward. So that's kind of been my journey. I'm married. My wife and I, we've got 2 French bulldogs at home. We live in South Toledo, so about 10 minutes from the school. She was an Anthony Wayne girl, so we went to high school together. She works in the area as well as a real estate agent. So, Toledo's our home. We've been here for a while. We've both really carved out a nice career path for ourselves at young ages. I mean, I'm 31 and she's 29. We both are doing a good job for ourselves. So, I've had a unique journey. I've worked my butt off to get to where I'm at, but I've gotten lucky along the way. I've been around some good people and, just really excited about the future of what we're building here.
No, that's awesome, Coach. And we appreciate you kind of opening up about your early years and how it all kind of took form. And I just want to go back and note one thing for the coaches that do ask a lot of questions on how to get those jobs. And I love that you focus so hard on describing those early years, right? Like obviously, yes, there's luck in the sense that you were lucky to be around such great coaches, but you put yourself in a situation, you grinded it out, you weren't being paid, you were a volunteer. And you put yourself in the right situation to have learned enough and to have built those relationships. So when the opportunity presented itself at 22 to go be an OC, you had enough there to go do that and the guts to say, okay, even though I don't know if I'm qualified, let's get after it. Let's try. I know this guy's going to help me and I'm not on my own. So you putting in those years of just grinding it out, that's a big piece of this thing. A lot of coaches, like they hear that and they go, oh, well,
yeah.
Whether they, maybe they just need to actually work a real job. Maybe that's the case. But either way, those things should not be overlooked as the foundational pieces. So you kind of built what you do now off of all those years of seeing other coaches, how they do it, what they do well, what you take from it, what you don't take from it. It's all part of that experience. And
yeah. And that's what I would tell young guys here. If there's guys here that are 19, 20, 21, 22, listen to this and just, they're trying to climb the ranks quickly. Number one, I would tell you to slow down. It's some of these jobs are not cracked up to what there's a lot of these jobs are open because they're bad jobs. Right. Mm-hmm. So like, having the title is a cool thing. It's a unique thing. It gives you that experience. Yes. But it's kind of that catch-22. It's a double-edged sword, right? Where like, you got to have the experience, but you also better make sure that where you're going makes sense. And you can really have the ability to develop and grow. Job hopping and title hopping and all that other stuff. It can come back to bite you in the butt a little bit, so, and you got to understand, like when you're taking some jobs, there's a lot of hard work. Like it's the same thing. I felt like when I took over the Otsego job, I felt very much how I felt when I took over the St. Francis OC job. I've never been a head coach before. I don't know what I'm doing. Like, you better surround yourself with some good people and figure it out along the way. And you have to really, if you want to be good at a high level, you got to really care at a high level as well and make sure you're diving in. You can't just want to do it because you want to be called the head coach or called the OC. You know what I mean? So it's got to be something that you eat, breathe, and sleep. And you can find a healthy balance with it too once you kind of get in a groove. But these jobs are bad jobs for a reason, and they're probably revolving doors for a reason, but you've got to believe in yourself and take that chance on yourself that you can be the guy to turn it around too.
Yeah. Okay. Before we get into the quarterback stuff, because I want to get there, you just said something that I'm a little sensitive too, because I'm a 49er fan, and I was so happy when Mike Singletary took over. It's been a decade or so since that happened. But one of the things that was glaringly obvious is that when you hear good leaders speak, and I shouldn't be calling out Mike Singletary, he's amazing, one of my favorite players growing up, but people that don't feel the need to hire smart people around them. Some people, it almost seemed like he was insecure in a way where he wanted to be the smartest guy in the room, right?
Yeah.
And so like being secure in yourself to say, hey, these are my strengths, these are my weaknesses, and I need to hire people around me that can kind of fill those gaps, and not taking it as like they're going to take my job or whatever that.
Yeah.
Like, that is a huge point to find success quickly, is making sure your staff maybe smarter than you. Like, that's not a bad thing.
You better be able to have guys on your staff that can challenge you. Now I'm trying to hire a guy on the offensive side of the ball and the defensive side of the ball for our staff here that are kind of some older souls, and they've been around a little bit, maybe been a head coach. Because now I'm like, as we progress further down the road in this job, I need guys like that around me. Because sometimes you can get so tunnel vision where it's like, it's my way or the highway. And that's not necessarily that's not the best for your program and your team and yourself as a head coach.
Love it, Coach. Okay, so let's talk quarterbacks. A couple just basic questions I like to ask coaches like yourself that are so quarterback minded and do such a great job with them. Number one, how much do you train technique?
Yeah, we train a lot of technique, especially like we've done a couple clinics, with our RPO stuff that are floating around out there on YouTube. That's a big thing for me, is the technique. I think that you see all these Twitter videos of the quarterback gurus out there where guys are throwing at every arm angle and this and that. We're not that technical. And I think that there's a space for that for kids. Like, for me to spend that much time in season and even even preseason on that technical of stuff, it's not advantageous to our program, because at the end of the day, we have to go get ready to win football games, and our quarterback's got to be able to compete at a high level. He's got to be able to make throws. He's got to be able to make reads. So like, we teach technique to the extent of like keeping it really simple for our guys. When we talk about our RPO game, we keep it really simple with a couple different footworks. I usually don't really mess with quarterback arm slots a whole lot. Like, the kid can spin it, he can spin it. I think that you can sometimes get so technical with that you put a kid in a bad spot. We teach technique, but we also, I want a kid to be fluid enough and free enough to play, because at the end of the day, like on a Friday night, he's got to be able to process information up here when it comes to a scheme. If we're thinking too much about the technique of what we're doing within the game, you can kind of handcuff yourself as a quarterback. So right now though, January, February, March, great months for them to like, and I'm a quarterback guy, but I got no problem with our kids going and seeing somebody else, because they need to hear a different voice besides me. So I don't have an ego so badly where I'm like, no, I don't want our quarterbacks to see anybody but me, and that's it. Because I think it's good for them to kind of hone in on those skills and gain some more skills during this time with some of those guys out there that are teaching high level technique skills, because there's some really good guys out there that are doing that right now.
One of the reasons I picked the air raid was because it was so simple for me to communicate with my quarterbacks, right? But I did fall into the trap, these pre-snap, what we call variables or pre-snap keys, right? From a quarterback perspective, when they're standing at the line and, in practice, you're kind of standing behind them, kind of whispering in their ear or yelling, whatever the case may be. What's your philosophy there? Like, how do you coach that?
Yeah, I think we try to teach our guy to first and foremost give himself an opportunity to make the easiest, most advantageous play, especially when you're talking about the pass game. When we're talking about the RPO game, you can almost put it in the thirds, right? Because he's going to have three options. He's going to be able to pull it and throw it, right? He's going to be able to hand it off, right? And then in some instances, with how RPOs are designed, he can pull it and run it with some sort of pre-snap RPO tag where it's catch and throw, or if that's not there and the box tells him to run, he's now going to run a zone run play where he's either handing it or pulling it himself. And then there's a post-snap world where he's living in a world where he's either going to throw it based off a post-snap read from a defender, or he's going to hand it off, right? And all that's happening very quickly. So I think what we try to do for our guys, we try to break it up into thirds for him, right? Where if there's a pre-snap option for him where it's now, take it, right? If there is no pre-snap option and we're asking him to do something post-snap, we're asking him to focus on one guy. Now, I think when you go back to the broader picture of that, he's got to see there's a couple main things that he needs to see when the play is going on. First and foremost, he's got to be able to, because this is a step to me. he's got to be able to see a signal or hear a play call and process what exactly his job is on that. That's step number one. Step number two is we like to give him the opportunity to at least see if it's a 1 high or 2 high defense. We don't ask him to see like if it's, cover 2 or cover 4 or cover 3. We simply just ask him, hey, is it 1 high or is it 2 high? And then if we've got a motion incorporated into our play call, he's going to be able to tell if it's man or zone based off guys moving or not. Right. So those can be immediate keys for him based off of pass game. A lot of times when you're asking a kid to just hand a football off in a straight run play, he doesn't have a whole lot to think about. Right. He's just handing in the zone run scheme where he's involved. We're asking him to focus on one guy. For us, like, I never want him to look at all 11 defenders and be like, where do I go with the football? I think at the end of the day, we give our guys play calls to where they understand like, hey, this is a really high percentage throw for me, or this is a low percentage throw for me, right? Based off what we've done in our week of prep. But the main things are he's got to have a great understanding of what his role and responsibility is first and foremost. And that's part of his process. And then he has to have some idea of what the defensive structure is that he's going against, whether it's a 1 high, whether it's a 2 high, whether it's a 3-4, 4-3. He's got to have an understanding in those 2 areas. And then at that point, he's got to be able to go play. So that's kind of how we break it down for him. And we try to keep it that simple for him, understand what your job is at a really high level, and then understand what the defense is kind of giving you.
Right. Love it. Love it. And this RPO piece, right? Like I'm at a lower, usually like JV and below is the audience here. And we talk a lot about quick game versus RPO. What is more simple for a quarterback to kind of understand. But the RPO question at the lower levels, because it's like you kind of mentioned it, like the pre-snap RPOs, like we do that all day, right? Like I'm trying to come up with a better phrase, because people, when I say RPO, a lot of people think like, well, we have these plays where we can either run GC counter or throw a screen, right?
Yeah.
So that is a run pass option. But in my mind, when I hear RPO, it's what you're describing. In the play, he's literally looking at a linebacker or whoever this conflict defender is and deciding based on that movement if he's going to hand it or pull it and throw it, right? Yeah. So just to define that for the audience, because I think there's still some confusion, and I wish I could come up with a good phrase for the snap RPOs. And that's probably the best way I've heard it, the way you just said it. Snap RPOs, snap RPOs.
So we have ours in buckets, and our kids know them. Like our pre-snap RPOs are a bubble, a horizontal, or a missile, or like a pre-snap hitch, right, where it's a free access throw. Those are our 4 pre-snap RPOs, and our quarterback is taught, if you like the grass and the numbers, throw it. Right? Like, so if it's 3/2 for us, like we're in the advantage, throw it. If it's 3/2, exact. And don't worry about the ride fake. Don't worry about anything else. What's going on. If we have a 3/2 advantage or a 4/3 advantage or a 2/1 advantage, throw it. Like, get it out now. And then that goes back to at a micro level, like all those clinic talks that I've done with the footwork stuff. They know what that footwork looks like because we've rep the crap out of it. So it's easy for them, right? It's not just like, I think a lot of coaches get themselves into trouble with pre-snap RPOs when they're like, hey, if he's there, just throw it out there. Well, there has to be certain footwork that they have to take too to throw that high percentage throw, right? Because those need to be high percentage throws. They're extensions of the run game. So that's a pre-snap RPO for us. A post-snap RPO is he is legitly reading an apex defender, right? And he's reading, it could be a safety that comes down in the box. It could be an outside linebacker. It could be an inside linebacker. He is reacting off of what that guy does as he's reading and riding with the. So to help our guy out, like we found out at Central Catholic a couple years back, 1x1 was kind of our alignment with our tailbacks. Your tailback's alignment plays a huge role in this. 1x1 was kind of our alignment with our tailback. When we call our post-snap RPOs, which is like our 30 series, we call it, our running back will take a 2x2 alignment because the quarterback needs time to read that defender. If that running back's mesh is happening so quickly, there's zero time to read it, and he ends up handing it more oftentimes than not because there's no time to read it. There's no, number one, the kid's not reacting. Number two, the mesh happens so fast he can't pull it and throw it. So once we made that adjustment, we moved that back a little bit, and it also helped our back get downhill. It's played a huge difference in our guy really being able to ride, pop, and throw the football. So that's kind of the difference with us. Like anything that's post snap for us in the RPO world, it's going to go downfield, whether it's a 4-yard hitch, whether it's a slant pattern, whether it's a skinny post, whether it's a speed out, it's going to push the ball down the field. Anything that's post snap is going to work horizontally to our guys, if that makes sense. Or excuse me, pre snap. Yep. It's going to work horizontally.
No, that's a great way to define it. I'm going to take notes on that. I mean, I don't really stress the RPOs at the like middle school level, the post snap ones, because I just think it's like unnecessary and probably just not worth the risk. But that is a nice way to define it. Sounds like you guys are pretty RPO heavy, but I'm assuming you guys have some quick game or drop back game in there. And really what I'm driving at is how you teach progressions in the sense, if there is like, first, second, third read, that type of thing. Do you guys have many of those plays, and how do you teach that piece of it once you're past the RPO?
Yeah, we do. So we set up our quick game kind of uniquely. We'll dual tag a lot of things in our quick game. So kind of gives our kid an opportunity to have a side that he's going to look at, but then have an outside too, where if he's getting a certain look, he can go the other way with it. So I grew up in a world where mirrored concepts were a big thing. And my first time actually calling plays with St. Francis, we were a lot of mirrored concepts when it came to quick game, which to me was good at the time. But as we kind of dove into more spread football and I learned a little bit more and kind of what we developed a little bit, at a couple different places that I was at, we kind of started to tag things left to right. And so with our quick game, like we would have, for instance, something that we call like a vertical speed out, a vertical by 1 and a speed out by 2. We call that Ohio. A lot of times we'll tag an Ohio with a Seattle, which is a double slant, or we'll tag a Seattle with a snag, right? So our quick game is turned into 2 separate concepts per se. And a lot of times it'll give our kids the opportunity where we can throw to where we have better leverage, essentially. Now, if you're getting man coverage across the board, right? So if you're facing zone coverage, you can find out where you have better leverage. And we'll teach our guy like, hey, we like the leverage and the numbers in the grass over here. Let's work this side. If we're getting man coverage and we've got a quick game called, we also have built into where they understand and know which side's the man beater and which side's the zone beater, right? So that gives them that opportunity where a lot of times, like a good quick game for us that we've utilized over the last 4 or 5 years has been Seattle snag, right? Or snag Seattle. And we'll call it left to right. So for instance, if we're driving and, we've got a 2x2 formation, the first call is going to be to the left side and the second call is going to be to the guys on the right side. And then we've actually gotten to the point too, where if our kid's struggling reading it, we'll do a simple point up there or come down here. So, hey, you're throwing the double slants up there, or you're throwing the snag route or the Ohio route or whatever it may be, the Houston route down here, to keep it really simple for you. That's kind of how our quick game's developed. Now, we also have progression concepts and we have half field concepts. So we've really gotten into the bucket of having those, our pre-snap RPOs and our post-snap RPOs, which work as quick game. We've got 3 or 4 quick games that we carry. We probably end up only calling 2 or 3 of them at most throughout the season, maybe 1 or 2 of them at most throughout the season. And then our pass game, our progression stuff, we've leaned heavily on the inside-outside choice, which is not really progression stuff. It's half-field reads, it's the vertical stuff. We got away from 4 verts a couple years ago when I was working for Coach Dempsey. It was just, 4 verts seemed like the cool, unique thing to do at the time, but it's really hard for your quarterback to comprehend, I think, at the high school level. And furthermore, it was something that I don't think any of us were ever very good at teaching. So I did a lot of research on it. When it was stuff that we utilized when I was at BG too with Coach Babers on these deep choice concepts. And we've done a couple clinics on those as well, because it's become a big part of our offense. And it's a concept that's very movable, no matter if you're coaching at a place like Otsego where you've got a little lesser athlete, or if you're coaching at a place like here at St. Francis where we've got some top quality athletes. So, with that, they're basically reading half of the field, and then we're just tagging kind of a bonus option to them on the other side of the field. Keeps it really simple for a high school kid. But then we also have our 1 to 2 to 3 progressions, which they know, like if we're running mesh or we call delta, they've got an alert, which is the tailback wheel, and then they go 1 to 2 to 3 in the triangle on the mesh, right? So it keeps it simple for them. So, we've got some buckets of how our things are kind of laid out, and we like to pick and choose from a couple different buckets. We don't have like a air raid per se, or like a run and shoot per se, where like every concept has come from that family, if that makes sense. We've kind of grabbed things that we like, and that's kind of how we developed our pass game over the last couple of years.
No, and that's smart, right? And like you're saying, you're building what to work, and you can be, now that you have this foundation, you can be year to year what works with the certain kid.
Yeah,
right?
It keeps it easy within those buckets for your kids to know, like, okay, hey, this is a progression. So my guy knows, like our quarterback knows, hey, this is 1 to 2 to 3 for me, right? One's open, give it to him, no matter what the coverage is. they have to have a good sense of what the coverage is, but it's not a scenario where it's like they got to dissect the crap out of it pre-snap. They just know, hey, if one's open, let's go here. If two's not, so on and so forth. So the choice stuff is really simple. They're reading a corner on the outside choice. On the slot choice, they're reading a safety, and that's it. They're reading one guy.
That's the half field read you're talking about.
The half field read. So it keeps it, and it's vertical passing game. So, and it keeps it so simple for the quarterback. He's not trying to dissect an entire full field coverage. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and that's where the air raid that I've kind of tuned up for the middle school level and JV level. That's really mostly quick game, and literally the only pre-snap key that we are asking them to look at is that corner. He's going to tell you everything, right? If he drops back, I'm coming down to this apex defender, and I'm going to make him wrong, right? If he comes forward, I'm going to throw that deep third and get the ball out. And it's just like that one guy where just everything's based on that. And I love to hear you say that, because while you do have the full field reads and really the post-snap RPOs, all three families, that right there for my audience is you just, and we haven't prepped this. I want to make sure everyone knows I'm not trying to sell the audience on, think about it only one way. But for us in our quick game that we do, that is hearing it from a high school, high level coach. That's great to hear, because again, the theme of keeping it simple. If we can identify one guy, make a quick, now we still need to look at the guy post snap to see what he does. He might be trying to trick us, but once he makes his move post snap, we know what we're going to do.
Yeah, absolutely. If you can build a system where it's quarterback, I've never understood coaches that try to make it complex on the quarterback, especially at the high school level, and furthermore at the junior high or youth level. Like, if you can build a system to where, and that system's going to look differently every year. Like our system at Otsego looked vastly different than what our system was here at St. Francis in year one. And it's going to look different again next year. Like, and I think that's the thing you want to, that's why I always just think it's funny when people ask, like, what do you run offensively? And I'm always like, well, we run the spread. And I laugh because I'm like, everybody's running the spread. Like, it's really a pool of things that we've kind of put together that we feel really good about what our kid's doing, and our quarterback can execute at a high level because we've made it simple for him.
I will always harp on that for coaches, especially early in their careers. All right, last quarterback question. How do you quantify like your quarterback's understanding? Is it just film and, like, obviously if they're getting it in the game, or do you have any other technical way that you can kind of quantify their success and their understanding of the mental side of their understanding how to do these reads or understanding how to do these progressions?
Yeah, I think one thing that we started to do a couple years back, and this is when I was just a quarterback coach at Central Catholic, and obviously you had a little bit more time on your hands as just a position coach at the time, is I started going over the script with him and asking him to, like, hey, walk me through what you're doing here, right? As simple as that. Walk me through. So, for instance, if we had a play call, double 58 wide delta, which is a play call for us, right? Double 58 wide delta. Double is a formation. 58 is the concept of the backs can go out of the backfield with the pass protection. Wide delta is one of those progression 1 to 2 to 3 reads for him. I'd ask him, and I want to hear him spit back to me. I'm going to read the play side corner. If he follows the outside receiver, I'm throwing the alert now. But if I see the outside linebacker flow over the top, then I got to get to my triangle. If the corner plays, quarters coverage and gets out of there and just kind of walls everything off, then I got to get to my triangle. And then I'm like, good, boom. All right, let's move to the next play. Let's go trio 31Y stick, right? Trio 31Y stick. Okay, so I'm reading the apex defender between the tackle and the Y, or even the Y and our second receiver. If he plays a run, I'm throwing it. If he sits, then I'm handing 31. So I want to hear those, like, that's one thing that we started to do with our guys a couple years back, that where it's like, okay, if they're able to spit that back to me and walk me through what the play looks like, I know they got a good understanding of what they're supposed to be doing. If I hear them kind of go, wait, which formation is trio where he's like, now I'm kind of like, all right, we need to go back. They don't understand what the play is. They're kind of just, they understand what is happening, but they don't really know it. They need to know it to execute it, right? So, and I think in our system, year one, a lot of times our quarterbacks they're executing, but they're really just kind of doing what we've taught them at a surface level. Year two in our system, they're executing at a high level because they understand what the defense is now doing. That's allowing our offense to have open guys, if that makes sense. That's something that we really started to do with them. And then obviously we spent a boatload of time in the film room with them. Our quarterbacks, we try to go, at least twice a week with just me. And then obviously as a team, we do it, we watch film every day, watching our practice film, but it gives them a good sense of like, and then I think simply like, hey, we're in a 2x2. What do you like? Try to get them to regurgitate like, hey, I think this would work. I think this would work. I think that would work. That really tells you as a coach, like, okay, they have a great understanding for what we're trying to do as an offense. And then you really know when it clicks with the kids, when they come back to you after running a play and they're like, I should have went here based off of seeing this, and that. So to be very simple, when we started spitting plays out to them on the script ahead of time and asking them to walk through with us, what does that look like to them? That's been immensely helpful for our guys.
Right. Can they identify the defensive players that they're supposed to know what they're supposed to do? And that once they have that down, they can go fast. That's awesome. Yep. And I know this is your second year back there, but are your philosophy about, do you let the freshman quarterbacks and the JV quarterbacks come into this QB room with you guys?
Absolutely. Yeah. We try to do a good job of speaking to those young guys the same way we would speak to our old guy.
Right.
That way they get a good sense of what things are going to be like. Now, as you kind of progress in the season, sometimes that gets a little tougher at times, but we try to spend as much time with our young guys in the sense of like the communication, or at least hearing the communication from myself to our starter, our older guy, of what our offense looks like and what we want them to execute at a high level. So that way, when I go back and meet with the young guy on the script, right? He's maybe 2 years, he's now a junior. He was a freshman at the time. Now he's a junior. That's not his first time saying like, hey, let's go through the script real quick. All right, trio, 31Y stick. What are you doing? And then, it's cool to see them kind of pick up on it in the same sense. So we try to do that. We try to keep our young guys involved. Obviously, once you start playing games and you got to win and game plan, sometimes those young guys fall by the wayside a little bit, but we try to keep those guys involved as much as possible.
Are you clocking eighth graders at this point, or are you wait for them to come and then you figure it out?
Yeah, we're doing a little bit of watching, you could say.
Yeah. Okay, love it. That's for the youth coaches out there. All right, cool. So, okay, football conversation's over. Football is a game of, it's one of the few ways left that's why I love coaching it, to like literally teach a kid, not just in theory, but like getting knocked down and getting back up and physically feeling like someone just punched me in the mouth, but how do I react to that? Right. So don't feel the need to go too deep if it's too personal, but I like to ask coaches, like one of their biggest challenges in their life and how they overcame it. And it doesn't have to be football related. It just could be whatever, but if it is football related, that's cool too. But curious if you have any examples for coaches that,
we've had some family tragedy take place in my family. We lost our stepdad about 6 years ago now. He actually drowned in a boating accident out in Lake Erie. He was in our lives. We kind of had a waning relationship with, at least I did, with my dad growing up. And after my parents got divorced, and some things kind of transpired there. And then my stepdad did a nice job of, at the time when he met us, I was 11, my other brother was 9. 8 maybe, and then my other brother was like 5 years old. So 3 young boys, and he kind of took us in, and so he raised us for a lot of years. And now we've kind of rekindled our relationship with our dad, which has been really good and been awesome. But we lost our stepdad about 6 years ago. That was actually my second year at St. Francis as the offensive coordinator. Going through that time, you realize, you learn pretty quickly about who's in your corner and what's important to you. And football was immensely important to me at that time. I was right back on the practice field the very next day because I felt like that was the only safe space I had at the current time. I think the game of football for me has done a really good job, especially now that I've become a head coach, of allowing me to appreciate kind of the process of things rather than just the end result. I think when I first became a coach and calling plays, and I was so like hyper fixated on like, let's get to Friday night because Friday night's awesome, trying to win a game and you get to do it. But now as I've become a head coach and gotten a little bit older, I know I'm only 31, but being a coach for 12 years now and understanding myself better as I've gotten older, because I struggle with some stuff too. I know a lot of people don't like to admit this, but I go to therapy once or twice a month and talk things out because I think you're meant, and it's something that I never used to do before when my wife got me on it. And it's been huge for me to try to unpack some of the stuff that I deal with in my job and with my marriage and with some childhood trauma, and, the game of football has really always been a constant for me. It's been a safe space for me. I love my work. I love what I do. I think being able to be vulnerable, I've been a guy, I'm not afraid to admit it now, I've been a guy that has not been really vulnerable with feelings a lot of times. And I think the game of football can sometimes allow you to not do that. But I think going to therapy and being able to have conversations and open up myself a little bit has also allowed me to have a different lens as a head football coach and leading people and leading kids. Because I'm going to tell young guys right now, like, being a head football coach is not about calling plays on a Friday night. It is 98% of everything else that goes on. And I being able to have tough conversations with people and being able to connect to kids and being able to open up to kids and being able to have kids see you in a different light and being able to inspire kids and inspire people, that's what it's about. And I think that some of the trauma that I've been through, as a young adult, as a child, with divorced parents, then losing a child and having some strained relationships, but then learning how to communicate those things through some therapy, but then having the game of football always be a safe space for me. I guess I know that's a lot right there to kind of unpack, but that's kind of, my story and where I'm learning about myself every single day and learning how to, try to just become a better person every day. And I think that, I've gotten a sense being here in this job now that I really feel like I'm at home. And that's been a really cool, because climbing the ladder and getting job after job it's a cool thing because you're chasing the title in a certain aspect. I know we talked about you don't want to do that, but once you find like your niche and the place that you really want to make a difference at, that's where, you're supposed to be. And I think I found that here. The growth that I've had with being able to be vulnerable and have loss in my life and learn how to overcome those things has been tremendous for me. And the game of football has always been a backbone for me, as I've gone through those.
No, that's awesome, Coach. And I appreciate you sharing that personal stuff. It not only is going to make you a better, obviously, person, which is always the goal, but it, like you said, it gives you a different perspective. And, the therapy piece to really dive in about yourself and learn that will only help kids get there faster. I grew up in the 90s football with neck rolls. Yeah. It was actually like drilled into you to not do those things, right? So in a certain way, football has evolved to a good place where now, and maybe it's just society, we're a little bit more open with things. And the thing that if we can get the kids to kind of start doing that, right? Because if they don't, all that negativity is going to build up and come out in the wrong way.
And I think, football, I think is a game that's under attack a little bit right now with the concussion stuff. And it's a beautiful game. It's an awesome game. I'm making a living doing it with being an educator and being in education and developing people and things like that. But I think that, we can find a space. I think that's what we've tried to do with our program. And I talked about this, to a news reporter a couple weeks back, but I think we're in a space with our game now that we can be vulnerable and teach kids to open up, but also still be that, because a lot of kids nowadays need the structure and they need the stability, because a lot of kids don't get that nowadays. So we can be a unique space where, and football's hard. It's not easy. That's why that's why technically it's a dying sport in a lot of areas, because it's not easy to play football. It's easier to go do other things. But I think we can find a space to where, how do we coexist in both those worlds, to where this is a really hard game. It's going to teach you a lot of life lessons and make you tougher and all that stuff, which is important, because I tell our kids all the time, like, one day, man, wife's going to be sick, baby's going to be crying. You're going to not want to go to work, but somebody's got to go up and get up and go make money. Like, excuse my language, but shit's going to get hard, So you got to be able to fight through that stuff. And the game of football teaches you that, right, at a high level. And, but I think that the days of the guys just, as head coaches or people striking the fear of God into kids, I think those need to be gone too, because I try to pride myself in being a player's coach, but they also need to respect me to a certain extent, that when it's time to work, it's time to work. I don't need to walk around with them fearing me constantly, because that's not who I want to be for them. It wouldn't be me. So I think football is a unique, to wrap it all up, it's a unique space to where I think we need to do a better job of being vulnerable and hearing kids and understanding them better. But we still need to have tough conversations and tough love and give them that structure, because I personally think this is one of the last sports out there, or one of the last things out there, where kids are learning those tough, valuable life lessons, because this game is not easy.
Right. And how do we hold them accountable, but do it in a way where we're not doing it with the iron fist, right? And
Exactly.
And also we haven't gotten to the parents. They're also not going to let you hold their kid accountable if you're not doing it in a certain way. All right. Thank you for sharing that. Last thing I'm just going to say is I want to make sure everyone knows how to learn more from you, right? So I know there's a coach tube, and I'm going to put everything in the show notes, all the different links that I've seen. But is there anything you want to make sure people can go check out?
I've got a couple coach tubes out there. I think you have to subscribe to Coach Tube. I also think you have to subscribe to Coach's Insider. I don't think it's very expensive though. So I've got some videos on both those sites. If you simply just go on YouTube and type in my name, Josh Lindke, if there's videos that pop up. That is another avenue. There's a couple different podcasts that I've done with some different people that have done a good job. I've done the Glazier Clinic Talk. So if you're a subscriber to the Glazier, you can see him on there. I did the Football Scoop Clinic Talk back in 2020 when COVID was going on. So that one's still floating out there. So I think simply just going onto YouTube and finding those things. If you guys want to follow me on Twitter, at Coach_JL Lindke, Lindke, shoot me a DM. And I usually always try to get back to people as quick as possible because that's an important thing too, man. You want to be treated the right way. You better treat people the right way. So I always try to get back to people. And if you want to talk ball, just let me know. So, but appreciate you, Matt, for having me on.
Well, I can attest to that. I reached out to you yesterday. And we're doing this call today. So yeah, you've been awesome, man. I've definitely been following you and appreciate everything you put out there for coaches, and just appreciate you coming on and talking to some of these lower level coaches and helping them kind of find their way. And just like you've learned from other coaches, this is a great way for them to kind of take bits and pieces from your journey as well. So thank you so much. I will put all those things in the show notes so it's easy for people to find. And yeah, we'll be following you this season, coach, and watching for your next successful year.
Awesome. Last thing I'll tell people, Matt, you're a young guy, hitch yourself to a good program with good people and good players. That you want to climb this ladder and be around good football. That's the number one thing to do, is just to hitch yourself to good people and be around good dudes that know the game and you're going to learn a lot from, rather than maybe chasing titles at a lesser opportunity per se. Just be around good people and good things will happen.
Love that, Coach. All right, we'll end it there. Thanks again, Coach, and we'll talk to you soon. Thanks again for tuning in to the Quarterback Code. If you got value from this episode, please take a moment to like and let us know in the comments below. It helps us grow and bring you even more top-tier coaching content. Stay connected with us on Instagram, Twitter, and right here on YouTube. And be sure to join our highly active Coaches Community Facebook group, where we break down strategies, share insight, and support each other year-round. And most importantly, share this episode with other coaches who can benefit from it, because at the end of the day, without quarterback execution, you really don't have a chance.